Blake, what would be the absolute worst sport that you could bet on?
Toby, did you know there are people who watch baseball for fun rather than try to go to sleep?
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who still can't believe there are 162 baseball games a year. And I'm here with my co-host who still shows up every year on the season opener with his Cracker Jacks, Toby Walters.
I used to love baseball as a kid. I feel like it's, America's pastime for young boys, like for up until the time like you get to middle school. I just sort of aged out of it, I feel like. I do know people that absolutely are just diehard baseball guys. Does it bore you to tears, Blake?
Truly would watch just about anything else, do anything else than baseball.
So I've discovered that baseball and golf are the sports I love to watch when I feel so sick, like when I'm nauseous and I just need something in the background that is extremely calming to me. I'll put on baseball or golf. And it helps me feel better.
Yes. I love a sport that is so boring, it calms me. It's the inverse of hockey. I mean, hockey, you're like, I can barely keep up. With baseball, you're like, has something happened in the past 10 minutes?
Yeah.
No, it hasn't.
They did start using a pitch clock. So I think the pitcher has 30 seconds to throw the ball, which has helped speed up the game quite a bit. I still don't watch very often unless it's, like the World Series, something very interesting is happening. But yeah, that's helped some, but it's still pretty boring if you don't like baseball.
Yeah, not my favorite.
Yeah. So just recently, Jared Toger and I were down in Orlando area together. We were visiting churches, and we got to visit a church called Journey Church. And it might be confusing for people in different areas because there's a lot of Journey churches. It's a very common name. Blake, why do churches always name the same thing?
Well, that is annoying. Most of the time it's First Baptist. This time they're naming themselves after a really great band that did Don't Stop Believing, and I'm just like, leave them to themselves.
I'm impressed you know that.
I was a choir boy in high school, and I belted out that song, boy.
So Journey Church is just a fascinating, just like steady in God doing amazing things that are unexpected. So they're only 8 or 9 years old, and they're running over 5,000 on a weekend now. They've grown that fast, that quick. And so they were a church plant in 2016, but then when COVID happened, they were doing services that just connected with the community around them in Orlando. People were watching online when they were at home during COVID. And then after they opened their doors back up, post-COVID, people just started coming like crazy.
They made the journey in?
Yes, they made the journey to Journey. And so they ended up moving into, so Toger and I pull into the parking lot, and it's this gigantic kind of like manufacturing warehouse looking building. And Toger and I were debating, what did this used to be?
Yeah. The repurpose.
Yeah. So I thought it was some sort of manufacturing plant, but they said it used to be a high-lie betting center. And I'm like, I didn't know what they were saying at first. I was like, high life? And they kept saying it high-lie. And finally I Googled it and like, high life's a sport? Do you know that, Blake?
No.
I feel like it's a Brazilian sport. Like they throw a ball with kind of like some sort, I don't know. But maybe our guest today will explain it. But anyways, they set up church in this giant high-lie betting center, and they've just continued to grow like crazy. But it's not, they don't have just decades of resources, so they're just making it work as they go. So first thing they had to do was expand the seating, but they didn't have any more seats. So they bought used chairs from a movie theater in Chicago that shut down. Like they drove a truck up and they bought all these used chairs and brought them back. And so they have 2 different colored seating sections because they have, different seats for different sections. And they have an overflow area that is like up in the mezzanine area, and it's physically connected, but they also have TVs up there on delays and a different sound system up there. It was just fascinating to see what they've done with, just limited resources, but also they're growing like a wildfire.
Are we sure that all of the people that are attending, all the growth, isn't just people returning to what they think is the sports stadium? And they're like, where is the betting for the sports?
The funniest thing they told us is that, so right now they're leasing the space from the company that owns the Highlight Betting Center. And the company is trying to keep their betting license active. So in order to do that, they have to have betting in the building once a year.
This is incredible.
So the entire production team has to strike their stage, their PA, all of their production stuff once a year so that the betting center can set back up, the Highlight Betting Center, and people can come in and gamble.
This is a waste of resources. You need to keep it all as it is, and you put over-unders on how many is the preacher going to have? Will the mics go out?
Yeah.
What kind of Gatorade will they throw on the preacher at the end of his service? I mean,
they cast lots in the Bible. Like, there was betting in the Bible.
Oh, I'm not going to go that far. I'm saying it's funny. I'm not saying it's justified, but this is a very simple solution. This is great.
Yeah. Can you imagine if we had to strike church gear just once a year so that, I think it was a closet manufacturing company that used to work in here.
A closet manufacturing company?
Yeah. That's who used to be in our warehouse and office space.
So we just work in a closet?
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. You know who doesn't live in a closet or a betting center, but does win every bet he's ever made, is a Florida man with an Aussie accent, but his official title is the campus production manager for Hillsong Brisbane, Reid Wall. Reid, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Reid, do you know what highlight is?
I have no idea what highlight is. I feel like it's one of those sports that would be in some cartoon or some TV show trying to be exotic. I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
But tell you what, if you need some help falling asleep at night, if you think baseball is boring, you should check out cricket. It's like baseball, but it takes 5 days to play the game.
What?
And sometimes it ends in a tie. I've lived in Australia for like almost 20 years, and I still can't wrap my head around how boring it is.
I'm sure we have listeners out there that love highlight and love cricket and are just listening right now, just screaming, "You idiots, you don't understand the passion we have for these sports." Baseball, I'm fine making fun of because, we're Americans, Mike.
Yeah, and in America, we make fun of things.
Yeah.
That's like our whole bit.
Yeah. Do you guys know it's the thing you throw the ball with for your dog, and it's kind of like it's got a handle.
Go fetch.
You stick the ball in it, and you throw the ball with the thing in your hand. Like, do you understand what I'm describing?
Hey, just so you know, we're recording on a Friday evening, and Toby is just blackout drunk right now.
I had brewed cacao and coffee, so this is me on brewed cacao and coffee. Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about, brother.
That's fine. We're going to Google highlight later, and we're going to see what it's like,
Okay.
and then we can discuss. But yeah.
Well, Reid, this is typically where we would do our 5 Truths and a Lie segment, but we are doing something special. We got a different segment at a different time of the podcast that will come at random. So, but before that comes in, why don't we get to know a little bit more about Reid with our intro question, Toby?
Yeah. So, Reid, you are a Florida man now living in Australia. Question number 1, is there a snake on the planet that has not tried to kill you? And question 2, can you give us a snapshot of your background in production?
Well, no snakes have killed me yet, thankfully. They say the most dangerous thing for an American in Australia is looking the wrong way when you cross the road. But thankfully, I haven't died yet. So my background's kind of wild. I grew up in Key Largo, Florida, and grew up playing piano. And when I was like 12 years old, my kids pastor offered me a deal. He said, "Reid, you could start playing piano in kids' church, and or you could graduate from kids' church and go to the adult service." And I had like this fear of boredom, and I just didn't want to have to sit through sermons every Sunday as a 12-year-old kid. That sounded awful.
Yeah.
And so I made a deal with my kids' pastor that I would start playing keyboards in kids, and from there I eventually started playing music at youth and doing sound at church. And as I went to finished high school, it was either go do computer science at FSU or go to Hillsong College and do the music thing. And so I went to Hillsong College and did the music thing. Pretty quickly was mixing monitors at a whole bunch of events we do. Did some music there too. And that was an awesome season. Learned so much. I mixed monitors at a whole bunch of conferences and events. Eventually did some international touring a little bit while I was in college. So that was all in Sydney when I, when I was finishing up my degree, we were doing a conference up in Queensland where I am now. And they announced just after that we were launching Hillsong Brisbane, which was the first interstate campus our church did. This was 15 years ago. And so I flew up and back a whole bunch doing sound at that, and then was offered a job on staff up in Brisbane, got engaged, moved up, and I've been here for 15 years.
Nice.
So kind of the real short version.
Did you finish your degree, Reid?
Yeah.
That's not allowed. In production, everyone's story is they get to the last semester or they get halfway through and they're like, bump this. I can't believe you finished. That's incredible.
Well, had I dropped out, I would have lost my visa. So I needed to finish.
Yeah.
He literally had to do it for his citizenship.
Yeah, I got a bachelor's in theology and an advanced diploma in creative ministries.
Okay.
So, but most of my college experience was like me. Most of what I learned in college was me like working under the production dudes as a volunteer. And it was awesome.
Yeah. So I feel like here in America, we think of Hillsong and we think of Hillsong Music and Hillsong United, but obviously Hillsong is a church, and I assume that's how it started, that the music came out of the church. Can you give us just like a very quick overview? I mean, Hillsong started in Sydney, and then how many campuses are they now?
Yeah, started in Sydney. I want to say 1987, which is the year I was born, I think. What's wild is when I came to Hillsong College in 2005, I was 18. We had 2 campuses in Australia. We had a bunch of little services that they were called extension services. There were maybe 8 of those. They were real small. And then Hillsong London existed and Hillsong Ukraine existed. And so in my 20 years here, I've obviously seen that explode, and I've worked on a whole bunch of the Australian launches. I think in Australia right now, I could pull up the website and check, but I think we've got something like 30 campuses around Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, across the country. And those would range in size from, there are some brand new launches that are running in a coffee shop that just stream our broadcast facility, all the way up to campuses with thousands. And it's a huge, diverse mix of what the technical reality is.
We kind of make assumptions. Is there mega churches everywhere in Australia like there is here in the States, or is Hillsong one of the only mega churches in Australia?
And is there a kangaroo on every corner? I genuinely want to know how often you see kangaroos.
Guys, I genuinely still get excited every time I see a kangaroo. Like if I see a kangaroo on I see one from the highway, I get so excited. Or if I see one, there's a zoo not far from here, the Australia Zoo. It's I can't believe I'm mind blanking this guy's name. The famous Aussie zoo guy.
Steve
His
Irwin?
zoo was Steve Irwin Zoo is like an hour and a half north of here. It's super cool. There are there's a bunch of kangaroos. That's cool. And we even see koalas like out the back of our church. Our church here is on the end of on the edge of a mountain, and there's like koalas outside. It's really cool. Mega churches in Australia. As far as I know, Hillsong Church is the biggest church in Australia. There is so the campus I work at, Hillsong Brisbane. We are a 1,500 seat auditorium. We do 3 services on a Sunday, and we legitimately need that many services.
Yeah.
There would be where I live in southeast Queensland, would be considered the Bible Belt of Australia. But there are 2 other churches within, say, a 15-minute drive that are the same size auditorium. So Hillsong Church is definitely the biggest church. Planet Shakers is, they're in Melbourne. They're a big church.
Yeah.
So there are some big churches, but I mean, not to the scale of America.
Yeah.
Population of Australia is like 26 million people.
Okay.
So that puts all of Australia at smaller than the population of Texas.
Yeah.
Are you kidding
and a little
me?
bigger than, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a
And
wild fact.
everybody lives along the outside of the country.
Yeah. So I know you spent your childhood growing up in Florida. You left when you were about 18. in your sense, what's kind of the biggest difference between the American church and the Australian church, especially when it comes to production? Is it very similar, or is it quite a bit different?
Or is it just the amount of guns that are there on a Sunday?
You know what? It was wild being at a church in Texas a couple years ago for an event, and I saw dudes with guns at church, and I was like, whoa, we definitely don't see that in Australia. What's really different here is the average Australian church is like 150 people. Mm-hmm. And the cost of doing anything here is just more expensive. Like from a cost of living perspective, it would be more, the major cities in Australia would be more like your Los Angeles, not your Oklahoma City. So doing anything is expensive, doing labor is expensive, and property is expensive. So from a technical perspective, mostly churches are running on a high quantity of volunteers. Mm-hmm. And almost nobody has a guy on staff as the front of house engineer. Nobody can afford to pay someone to just mix. Everybody employed at a church is employed to lead teams of volunteers.
Yeah.
And so when I listen to these podcasts, and I hear people talking about, oh yeah, we've got, 10 staff and all these volunteers and 15 contractors, I'm like, whoa, nobody here can afford to have consistently just have contracted people to mix or to switch video. It's all volunteers.
And
and the other thing,
go ahead.
The other kind of church style thing I see quite different here is a lot of the American churches will have kind of their pastor preaches every Sunday, or they have some guests, but it's like that pastor preaches. And the Australian church model is very much that they have a senior pastor who preaches some or a bit, but there's a lot of churches will have a teaching team, which means more varied technical outcomes depending on who's preaching for the production teams to hit.
Yeah. So, you're talking about staff. Most churches don't have dedicated front of house engineers. They don't have a big production staff. Is it kind of the similar reality with getting gear there, that it's just expensive to get gear? And so, the production setups are a little more rudimentary, or you trying to make gear last longer?
Yeah, I mean, definitely when I look at especially right now, because the Aussie dollar is not doing well versus the US, equipment's just more expensive here, and the volume that anybody buys here is so much smaller. A friend of mine years ago told me that Guitar Center sells more money in SM57s in a month than all Shure products sells in Australia in a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I got told this like 10 years ago, but yeah. So it's just everything's lower volume.
Yeah.
It's sea freight to get anything here. So yeah, it's more expensive to do stuff here.
Yeah.
Everything's lower volume. I mean, even the decibels cost more in Australia.
That's right. Yeah. Blake, I'm thinking we need the Church Gear yacht so we can just load it up with gear and set sail for Australia.
Toby, I am in at the word yacht. I am in.
Blake, if you and I were captaining a yacht and set sail for Australia, where do you think we'd actually end up?
Isn't there like places that still have like undiscovered people groups that attack you if you dock there? We'd end up there somehow, because you would say, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Jerk it to the right. And I go, it won't be fine. I jerk it to the left. And we would just go through the water in chaos.
Yeah, but that would be amazing content. If we were podcasting from an island of crazy undiscovered people groups.
As long as I don't die, I'll take an arrow to the chest for this podcast.
Reid, you were recently part of Gather 25, and can you talk to us a little bit about Gather? It seems like it united the world for a period of time to worship together. So what was that like, and how did that work for you guys?
Yeah, Gather was super cool, and you guys could do a whole episode with Jeff Sandstrom and Steve Pippett just on Gather.
Never heard of those guys. I don't know who they are.
But Gather was a global church broadcast that ran for 25 hours, broadcasting live from 7 different sites around the world. So Dallas was like the broadcast hub. I was in Auckland, New Zealand, and sites in Rwanda, Kuala Lumpur, London, Dallas, Chile. I'm probably missing one, but live broadcasts from all over the world that kind of worked, east to west. So I was in Auckland mixing monitors for that. The interesting one is it was at Life Church Auckland, Paul de Jong's church. They took such great care of us. But it was like mostly a Hillsong production team or current and former Hillsong production guys. So it kind of felt like I was doing a Hillsong event at a church in Auckland. Jad Gillies and Darlene Check led worship, who are great people that I've worked with a bit over the years. And so it just felt like I was doing a Hillsong event in another building, but it was awesome. It was a big worship night at a church. And I mixed monitors and I did a bunch of the pre-production, like the audio paperwork for that venue.
Yeah. What were some of the kind of unique challenges of you guys being, live streamed globally, essentially, and connecting with six other sites?
Yeah. So it was all programmed. It was a one-way. We streamed with high vision encoders from our site back to Dallas. We kind of did our thing in the room, and our broadcast engineer, Andrew Crawford, who is amazing. He's been the record engineer and kind of producer on a bunch of Hillsong albums over the years. He was sending a whole bunch of stems from his console as well as his broadcast mix through some high vision encoders back to the guys in Dallas. In the end, they were just using his 2-channel left-right mix. But it was an awesome worship night to do with, there in Auckland, and it was cool that it was linked to a bunch of different sites all over the world. We had comms going back and forth, so their producers and different technicians. I think we had four lines of comms bi-directional, locally over Dante that hit some high vision encoders with an Ultrix router to do audio embedding and de-embedding. But it was really cool being a part of an event happening globally and just seeing friends all over the world, sending photos about what they were doing, and we're kind of all on an event together, but all over the world.
Yeah. Did you guys run into some technical problems?
It actually went really, really well.
Yeah.
The guys
you knock
production
on wood
managing
right
it
now, Reid. You knock on all the wood in your house.
Yeah, I mean, the guys production managing the event did a really good job, and the venue I was in, I probably had the easiest event in the world because we were in a church building that had great gear. And so, it took some time to get things set up. Integrating equipment, into someone else's rig is always, a little bit of a challenge, but no, it actually went really, really well. The hardest part was just getting comms tie lines happening all over the world.
Yeah. And do you have any, did you guys talk about like how many different sites were just tuning in and watching, or how many people took part of it?
I'm so sorry. I don't actually know.
Yeah.
I know. I know there were a bunch of churches all over the world watching, a whole bunch of people online watching.
Yeah.
Do you know how many of those people were just kangaroos in button-up shirts?
We invited some, but I don't know if anybody watched. But yeah, it was all 338s in-house, and then broadcast was a D-Live we brought in.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Did it feel at all like, did you get the sense of like, oh, this could be the future of the global church? Like this might start happening more often because the technology is there now that we can do church in Australia and Rwanda and London and Dallas at the same time together.
Yeah, what's wild is for me working at Hillsong, I've done so much of that. We've been linking around the country for years. Even all through COVID, we did live links between LA and Sydney, high vision encoders. So we've done a fair bit of that. So it was super cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the technology is definitely there. And what's wild is so much of that you can just do on public internet now. We weren't even using, there wasn't like a dedicated trunk between, it wasn't anything fancy. It was just public internet.
That's wild. Blake, I think we're going to start calling the Church Gear Gather podcast, where I am either in Australia or the Florida Keys, because Reid has chosen the best spots on earth. And so then you'll be here doing the hard work, and I'll be there, but we'll do it simultaneously.
Hang on, if we're picking cool locations, I'm going to somewhere like Wisconsin or South Dakota or Little Rock. I mean, I'm going somewhere cool myself.
You have a wild imagination there, Blake.
Maybe Vermont.
Maybe. Vermont is beautiful, though. Yeah. Okay. It's time.
No.
It is time for our weekly segment of Baffling Blake, or Baffle Blake, with bits of information about blessings, blunders, and boom mics bordering on buffoonery. You love how I'm doing this live, people.
I'm staring into your soul trying to get you to mess that up, and you didn't. Good job.
Oh, my brain.
I'll give you one.
My brain is a scary place up there.
Even at the end of day Friday, blackout drunk, Toby still pulled that.
All right, Reid. So what we're going to do here is we have 5 scenarios, and they are either real or fake. And you and Blake get to vote. Did these actually happen, or are these made up? So I'm going to read one at a time. I'm going to read them to Reid. Bet he's never heard that joke before. And then, Reid, you get to decide first on each one, whether you think it's real or fake. And then Blake gets to decide. And the winner gets a prize pack from our friends at HouseRight. Does HouseRight know they might be shipping a prize pack to Australia? I guess we'll find out.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. I am super excited for this week's episode of Baffle Blake. Baffle Blake is brought to you by HouseRight, who specializes in integration for new buildings and renovations specifically for churches. They'll work alongside your architects to create spaces that look great and perform flawlessly for your church's unique worship experience. A room that sounds great is more than just gear. It's intentional design that starts long before construction. HouseRight will make sure your room minimizes distractions so the message is clearly heard and the space facilitates an impactful worship experience. And if you're not looking for your next project, but you are looking personally for your next job, did I mention they're hiring? Visit them at houseright.com to see their projects and open job opportunities. Now, let's baffle Blake. All right, number 1. These are all kind of worship fails in live church services. Number 1, a church added pyrotechnics for the first time to a worship concert, but the timing was off. Instead of going off at the planned cue, they hit at the worship leader dead on, nearly setting his hair on fire.
So we're guessing real or false?
Real or fake, Reid? What do you think?
That is real. Real for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Blake?
For the sake of his hair, of which I spend so much money on mine, I'm going to say false.
That one's fake, guys. AI made that up for me.
Disappointed.
I know. I'm sure there has been pyrotechnic mishaps in probably like church Christmas productions, because I know that has happened. All right, next. A drummer got locked inside the clear drum cage during a worship set. He was in there for nearly 20 minutes of the sermon until somebody noticed and let him out. What do you think, Reid? Fake or real?
I'm calling fake. Who installs a lock on their drum room?
If it was somewhere in the South, I could see the little old ladies teaming up, to shut this drummer down. So I'm going to say true.
It is true. There was a latch on the door for some reason, and he couldn't get it open from the inside.
2-0. No prize pack getting shipped from HouseRight to Australia.
Nope. All right, number 3. During an energetic worship set, the worship leader got so caught up in the moment that he fell backwards into the baptismal pool behind him. He emerged soaked, but kept leading worship like nothing had happened.
That sounds believable. I believe that.
Okay.
I'm going to say false.
False. It is true.
Oh.
That actually happened. All right. Point to Reid.
2-1.
All right. Here we go. Next, during a tender moment of worship, one lighting director accidentally triggered a strobe effect, actually causing one person in the congregation to have a seizure. Reid, what do you think?
Also true.
Okay. Blake?
Oh, this is brutal. That has to be true.
You both got it wrong. That's fake.
All right. 2-1. So we're going for the tie here, Reid.
Now, granted, that might have happened. One of our listeners might have been like, oh, that was actually me. But I have no actual evidence that is true.
Well, they wouldn't be able to tell us because they'd be in prison.
That's right. All right. And finally, one church tried using a drone for a live video feed, but someone lost control and it crashed directly into the worship leader's guitar. Reid, what do you think?
I'm calling false on that.
Okay. Blake?
All right. I'm going to say true.
That's illegal.
I'm going to say true. People getting cocky with these drones.
All right, that is false. And ironically, that was worth 5 points. So Reid wins.
No.
Yes.
Well, sorry, HouseRight. You're going to have to ship a prize pack all the way to Australia. And if you're looking to ship yourself to Lexington, Kentucky, you can go over to HouseRight's website and check out their jobs. They're hiring. Yep. And if you're not looking for a job, but you are looking for a great integrator for your next project, also check out our friends at HouseRight. They'll make your room right, or they'll get your house right. They'll get your house right.
Oh, man. And they will not install drones and pyrotechnics because they're smarter than that.
Unless you ask them to.
Yeah, maybe. All right. So next question here for our resident expert in Australia and Florida, Reid. One thing production leaders are great at is creative problem solving. What are some examples of solutions you put into place?
Yeah, I'm super passionate here. Definitely always, I'm the guy that looks back at, like, I'll look at a group of volunteers functioning in a room, or even just the ministry in general, and I kind of think about what would be the most effective way of kind of solving any problem.
Yeah.
So I do a lot in QSys, and I think QSys is a super cool platform. And so I've done a fair bit of little rooms where we do all of the audio, lighting, and video control in QSys. I do my full broadcast mix in QSys. We take stems from front of house, push it into a QSys core. We bring in ambience mics. I do all the level adjustments in QSys and compression in QSys, and we get ourselves to a pretty solid pretty solid version of the front of house mix.
Yeah.
By stemming it in QSys, and we haven't spent money on a broadcast console. We don't have a huge broadcast audience, but it certainly meant we haven't spent money on a broadcast console.
Yeah.
I also do a lot we also use QSys kind of in a way most people wouldn't think about it. We have a TV backstage at our mic table. So let me start here. I've thought a lot about how do you make sure that the people doing sound know who's on each microphone, and sometimes that'll change throughout a service. Mm-hmm. I've thought about how you'll have stage managers that I want to see the status of the microphones they're looking at. I've thought about how do we have it so that when the singers pick up their microphone backstage, it's real obvious backstage that the microphone is on. I've thought about how do the singers know which microphone is theirs backstage. You can pull out electrical tape and label everything. But I came up with this idea that I'm using QSys for, where I've got a TV backstage that QSys is outputting to from a little Raspberry Pi. That in the screen it's showing audio and RF values from the radio mic receivers. The audio engineers have a view where they can see all the names with audio battery and level, and the stage managers from their iPad can enter in names. And so everybody can kind of see what's going on, helps the guys on stage know which microphone to grab when they load from backstage. We can see the microphone is on when they pull it out of the charger. We can build name presets that, so if we're doing a special Mother's Day moment where all the microphones change, the stage managers can save different scenes there. And that's all in QSys, which is we think of as an audio and control DSP, but we're doing something kind of different with it.
Yeah.
So QSys is super cool. I do a lot in QSys. I'm also a big fan of Companion. I control a lot of our main auditorium systems in Companion. So that's a bit of the kind of more creative things I do.
Yeah.
We throughout Sunday, all of our back of house spaces and external rooms are all automated. So I hit service start in Companion, and that fires QSys commands all over the building. And it's helped us. It's been super cool.
Blake, I love that during that, very technical spout of wisdom, the only thing you heard was Raspberry Pi.
What is a Raspberry Pi? Genuinely, what does that mean, Reid?
It's a little tiny computer that costs like $100. that you can run a Linux distro on, but a whole bunch of people have written their own software for. A whole bunch of digital signage solutions use Raspberry Pi.
That is so cool.
You can remote a Stream Deck has a piece of software called Companion Satellite, not Stream Deck, sorry. Companion has a piece of software called Companion Satellite that will let you remote a Stream Deck over network. There's a piece of software called Virtual Here you can run on a Raspberry Pi that will let you remote USB over a network. So like if you want to plug in a thumb drive at one side of your campus and have it show up at a computer in a rack room on the other side of a campus, or a MIDI controller. We've done stuff like that. Virtual Here is super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very timely. I'm actually making a raspberry syrup for a cocktail tonight. That's a real story. So
maybe you can use QSYS to help decide which cocktail blend is which.
I think it's going to say the Raspberry Pi option each time.
You could wire up some GPIO triggers and do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, Blake couldn't, but some of our listeners could.
But me and Reid together might be able to.
That's right.
Together, we could join forces.
I love how far technology has come. So, Blake, when I started doing sound at my church in the 90s, you see this, black fuzzy thing on the top of your mic here. It's called a windscreen. That, you know what I'm talking.
Yeah, my brain is trying to think of a joke about you blowing wind or being like a blowhard, but it didn't work.
Okay.
So
yeah, I'll just keep going. And then, so we didn't have any wireless back then. They were all wired mics, and windscreens came in different colors.
Ooh.
So we'd have different colored windscreens on the mic. And so, the orange windscreen, and they all look like snow cones, of course, at this point. Orange windscreen would coordinate with orange channel on the board. So, somebody grabbed orange mic, you just turned up orange channel. So what do you think, Reid? Do you want to go back to this that's a creative solution, right?
They're so ugly.
Yes.
So ugly.
I think they called that the rainbow routing.
Yeah, it was rough. So, Reid, do you find that, with the reality of getting people and gear in Australia and the resources, that you just have to think of outside the box solutions? Because I know there are certain churches in America, they're like, we'll just throw money at the problem. But do you feel like, we have to come up with creative solutions because it's hard to hire people or get gear?
Can we go catch the money they're throwing at this problem?
Look, I think what you guys do is really cool, by the way. That you're repurposing stuff that's sitting in a closet and helping churches get it at a discounted price is super, super cool. I think a lot of where I come at it from is I'm just going, how can I help a group of, technical or even non-technical volunteers walk into a space and achieve outcomes really well. I sit back and I go, these people don't need a console with a whole bunch of buttons, faders, and knobs that they don't know how to use.
Yeah.
They just need an on-off button, and how can we give them an on-off button? Or they, they need real simple control, and how can we give them real simple control?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you, translate that and then train that to other people to start to think outside the box and think of creative solutions rather than just, there's only one way to do things?
Yeah, I'm always a big fan of stepping back and going, what are we trying to achieve? I think it's real easy to start. Or even when somebody comes at me and says, hey, Reid, we want to do X, Y, Z, and we need, this and this and this gear. I sit back and I go, what's the end goal in mind? Often have this conversation with pastoral teams. What's the end goal in mind, and kind of start there. And it's often what's going to be the simplest solution that makes it easy for various volunteers to actually operate this. And I'm definitely a fan of starting with a blank slate.
Yeah.
That's why Toby hired me.
Yeah. Blank slate.
Tabula rasa is the term for that. I remember that. That's the only thing I remember from English.
Isn't that Latin?
I didn't even get that right.
I don't know. I could be wrong. Blake, I am really surprised that it's all Reid has kept this episode on the rails so far. It has not turned into a disaster.
Yeah, really, it feels like you've been reading your questions to a wall, but thankfully he's, Reid Wall, and so he's been able to do it.
That transition right there was a disaster, Blake, by the way.
I think you're just jealous because I read it so well.
Mm-hmm.
Reid, if you had a disaster story in production, just a moment, everything went wrong,
other
than your appearance in this podcast having to deal with us, what happened? How did you handle it? Tell us about it, man.
Tell you what, you were talking about pyrotechnics a few years ago.
No.
Yeah, my very, very first Christmas spec we did, a young guy on our team who is a brilliant keyboard player. A lot of what you've heard from Young and Free recently was this guy. He was a stagehand. This is like 15 years ago, our very first Christmas spec in Brisbane. He was like volunteering as a stagehand for this Christmas show. And he accidentally shot himself in the face with a confetti cannon.
Oh.
Like, it was one of those handheld twist ones, and he's like trying to figure out how it works, and he shot himself in the face. That was funny. I was... Gosh, lots of funny things over the years. I was in Thailand with doing a Hillsong worship run where, and he would, I've heard him tell this story a few times, but Dave Ware put his foot on the wrong spot on stage, and he like fell through the stage in Chiang Mai. He fell through halfway through the stage, and then in the same moment, he lifted his hand with his microphone, and it slipped out of his hand and hit a security guard in the back of the head. That was a funny moment. Big epic fails. Gosh, I've had a few. I'm trying to remember them all. Here's another funny one. I was on another Hillsong trip. We had played the Araneta Coliseum in the Philippines one night, and the next day we're doing this. Like, we were leading worship at this microeconomic finance conference for women starting small businesses in like a small island in the Philippines. Like, I don't even know where we were. We were leading worship at this thing, and half the band ate something bad and got sick. And I was mixing monitors on this trip and randomly get pulled out from the monitor console. Worship leader says to me, "Well, our ears sound great, Reid. I know you play guitar. Jump up and play." That was a scary moment.
Yeah. How'd you do?
Did you play and mix at the same time?
You know what's really funny is so that was an era of music where you needed somebody that could stay out of the really good guitarist's way. And I played at church because I knew how to turn off all of the effects pedals and play rhythm guitar well.
Yeah.
So the worship leader says to me, "All right, pick 2 songs." It was Darlene Check. And this was a while back from the song. So I said, "Oh gosh, what has she been singing on this tour? What do I know that I cannot embarrass myself?" And so I said, all right, let's do One Way and Hosanna. And I knew in her arrangement of One Way, I knew she played it in the key of D, which is kind of different. The traditional key is B. And so we play it in D, and it's all going fine until we get to the bridge, which in the traditional arrangement, there's nothing fancy in the bridge. It's one pass of the bridge chords and the vocals are in. I completely forgot that in her version of the bridge, there was a gigantic guitar solo that I missed, and the MD was rather unhappy with me for, and everyone laughed, and I was embarrassed. But otherwise, it went fine.
Yeah.
But it is a funny moment we laugh about now.
Yeah. Love it.
Man, that is so crazy. It sounds like you took a lot of lessons away from that. If you were going to give us a tech takeaway, to wrap our episode, we always love to ask for one of these. What would you say to a room full of production people?
I am so grateful for the countless mentors in my life that have really helped me and invested into me. And my big, and so one of those guys is Mashiri Gateri, Joseph Mashiri Gateri. He heads up our production department. He's originally from Kenya. And a statement he said to us over the years, and he said to me a lot that really, really stuck, is the question, who are you bringing with you? And so often it's like, it's great that you can mix front of house or monitors or video or whatever you can do really, really well. But my big thing I say to teams a lot that I got from Mush is just, who are you bringing with you? Who is the volunteer that, you can put next to you that you're teaching? We don't need, there's lots of people that can do sound well, but we don't, it's not, like if you doing sound well gets us one person that does sound well, but if you can invest into other people, it helps the church grow, it helps the kingdom grow, and it helps that next person grow.
Yeah.
One of the real rewarding things I see in our team is we train somebody and they can, mix services well, and we've seen a bunch of people get jobs, have a career after, the learning some of the basics of technology in church. So who you're bringing with you? it's got to be about more than just me doing a great mix. It's I want to invest in the next generation of team and help the church have a deeper team.
Yeah.
So many churches are doing the multi-site thing, and the only way that works is if there's people on the team committed to helping grow other people on the team.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Often something that we all struggle with is letting somebody else step into our seat. And then, the deepest fear is that they might end up doing it better than us. But
I've never worried that a day in my life on a single thing I've ever done.
But yeah, just bringing those people along and reproducing yourself and your skill set and building teams. We love to touch faders, but sometimes we forget about that part. That's great.
And my wife's our campus worship pastor. She's incredible. But one of the things she says all the time is like, somebody took a risk on you. You know what I mean? Somebody gave you a shot, maybe before you were ready. We got to take a risk on people. I remember a friend of mine, Andrew Stark, who maybe you've met. He's a design engineer at Summit. He says, when I'm training somebody, I'm going to stand right next to him. And if things go badly, it's going to be my fault. And if things go well, I'm going to make sure they get the credit for it.
Yeah, that's great.
So
are you running monitors for your wife?
I have mixed monitors for my wife a fair bit, yeah.
Okay.
And what she wants to hear is awesome. And so I'm always happy to mix for her. Monitors is kind of my happy place. It's my favorite thing to do, but not something I get to do often Sunday to Sunday, but it is definitely my main thing.
Blake, I'm just imagining Reid on the talkback mic and saying something romantic in his wife's ears, but he accidentally chooses the wrong channel. And the drummer's like, whoa, Reid, that's a little too personal, buddy.
Look, it's like Church Tech Madness says, anything said on comms stays on
That's
comms.
right.
Well, Reid, we appreciate you taking a chance on us, man, and coming on this podcast. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Anything you want to point people towards?
Yeah, I would yes and no. I would just encourage people to go serve their local church. I believe that the God's community of people gathering together to worship Him is a big deal, and I want to be a part of making that happen.
Yeah.
So that's my plug. Go serve your local church, help out, make things better.
Love that.
Keep showing up.
I've been trying to tell Toby for years to finally serve the church. He just won't. He just won't do it.
Nope. I refuse.
Told you, Toby. This company doesn't count as your ministry. You got to go serve as well. Get them hours in. Not going to respond. I'm trying to bait you into fighting. You just into the episode?
I can talk about, the Young Marrieds ministry that we do and the small group we're part of.
I teed you up. You literally did my small group for a time.
I know. It's the reason you exist here at Church Gear, because I serve at church.
There we go.
Yeah. What was I thinking?
We got to get Toby out of here. Grandpa Toby's expiring.
It's Friday afternoon. Like it's like creeping up on dinner time.
You realize he's come out on Monday, right? Like this is going to be very confusing for people.
I know.
It's not going to feel like a Friday.
Yeah.
Reid, we thank you so much for coming on, man. Thank you for dealing with our tomfoolery. And you know where to find us if you ever need us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
All right, Blake, so who I'm bringing along with me is you?
I'm your plus one. I'm literally your companion pass on Southwest right now.
And I'm just wondering if the community is looking at me like, you're bringing him along? Like, what are you even thinking?
I wonder this at the same time every time I bring you anywhere.
Yeah. So, if people are very curious about, what I'm bringing you along with, what should they do?
I don't know. Why don't you tell them?
Maybe they should share this episode with a friend. Are you now trying to get me to do your bit? You're bringing me along with you now?
You keep teeing me up, and I'm just seeing what would happen if I kept throwing it back to him.
Yeah.
And that's what you
mental
should,
tennis.
And that's what you should do, is you should keep throwing this episode back at people until they listen.
Yeah. And if anybody out there knows what in the world highlight is, please share it with us online.